So I want to go back in time just a little bit.
Yeah.
When we left off, you were really still in the iRacing phase.
Yes.
And working your way towards the Mazda Road to 24.
Right.
And then after that came the actual competition.
Right.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about the competition, but I want to really come back to why we're here today.
Absolutely.
So let's go back in time. When the competition came, you were a sim racer.
Yes.
Not a real life racer.
Totally. Yeah.
And you had to go race against guys who were not only race car drivers, but they had experience in the Mazda.
Absolutely. So I qualified for the Mazda Road, the 24 shootout through iRacing, competing in iRacing's version of the Global MX5 Cup Series. So we're competing against the best guys in the world on iRacing, just like all of us sim racers do every day. But I qualified through that to get into the Mazda Road, the 24 shootout, and came on your show just before it. And I think you and I came up with our own predictions for it and hopes for it. But that got me into the shootout. I was competing against the best club racers around the nation, SCCA and NASA, and that's normally been the history of that shootout. And for the first time in the last couple of years, they've been inviting iRacers into it. And I became the first iRacer to win it. So
that is so awesome. That is so awesome. It makes you a Superman of heroes for the sim racing community. So when you got to that competition, I mean, and one of the things that impressed me about you was how cool your demeanor was. Mm-hmm. You're very mature for your age.
Thanks.
But when you got there, I mean, how were your nerves? Did you feel like a fish out of water? I mean,
I was. I kind of do the thing where I try not to make something too big in my head. I try, because I mean, you can't even sleep at night if you start thinking about it, and so I amazingly I think the iRacing actually, you train yourself mentally on there, but I think having good results in there, even though I can't really have solid expectations going into the shootout, because okay, I know how I do versus virtual drivers, but now these are real drivers, real champions that I'm going up against, like the best Mazda champions from around the nation. Where am I going to be? But I had so much confidence from just being on iRacing and knowing, kind of how races work and things like that. And just, I had good confidence. I was not cocky at all. It was just kind of like, I feel confident in myself. Just tried to be friendly with everybody and just had an awesome time. Like, literally when I was in the car driving it, it was kind of dumb of me because I was having so much fun in the car. I'm like, and then I think about it like, oh wait a minute, I'm in a competition. Maybe I need to pay attention a bit more. Going into that competition, into the shootout, I was absolutely underrated. Certain people, I think, like David Cook and a lot of the Mazda guys, they're really keying in on this, on the sim racers, and that it is a talent pool. So there are people within Mazda Motorsports that realize it's a tool to develop talent and to find talent, because there's no barrier for entry.
Right.
For as long as you have a PC and a wheel, you're competing. But I think a lot of the competitors, and maybe some people who aren't familiar with sim racing, certainly underrated the iRacers.
Right.
And it was raining super bad, and that's when I was nervous, because it's like, oh, rain, well, we don't simulate rain. I was a little worried about it.
Right.
I was super worried actually going in, but they let us do a reconnaissance lap, and then I went out, and I ended up being the quickest guy in the wet, and really close on times too. We had some pro Mazda coaches there, so we had Tom Long and Andrew Carbonell, and I was very close to their times in the wet my first time on track, and everybody was like, it was immediately like, oh, these iRacers we got to pay attention to.
How much track time have you had time in the car prior to getting to Laguna here?
So I immediately, after winning the shootout, I won a $100,000 scholarship from Mazda to compete in the Battery Tender Global Mazda MX5 Cup presented by BF Goodwrench Tires. And that scholarship I can take to any team. So I immediately called teams, and it was a cool part of the process. I would call teams, and they would be interested, and everybody loves the iRacing story. And a lot of these guys in the pits, all the pro guys run iRacing,
right?
And a lot of the team owners do, and they really like, they're really interested in the story. So they'd all invite me to test and things like that. So I go and test with different teams and get free seat time.
Awesome. That's great.
But analyze the teams and just see if the dynamic's right. And all the teams are very professional, but you want to find the ones that you can collaborate with better and just meld in better, and just some of the factors like location and much practice time you can get with them and things like that. What they can benefit you, what you can benefit them. But I ended up testing a lot with a couple teams, but ended up going with Six Sideways Racing, which is the current. They run the championship last year. They have the current champion, who's John Dean, amazing driver. And part of the reason to go with that team is, first of all, they're based out of Florida, but it's a top team. They covered the podium last year, which I don't think has ever happened in the series. The last race of the year, the podium was locked out by them.
Wow.
And it was basically like that all year. They finished first, third, and fourth in the championship. And I have John Dean, the champion. I can look at his data on here and overlay it.
Right.
And his data is like gold, So, and it's perfect for me. My biggest thing is not to go out and win a championship right away. It's to develop myself as a driver for Mazda.
Now, coming here, did you turn endless amounts of laps in the sim?
In sim? Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, I think I was like, I have this huge advantage because I'm the sim racer and I'm going to do 1,000,000 laps. But all the other pro drivers are on board now. And a lot of them were before, So they're all running laps on iRacing now. And in fact, John Dean, who's the champion, would never run simulators. He's like an old school. You should throw him in the 1970s Formula One grid. Like, that's the guy. It's total driver. And he saw what I was doing coming directly from sim into a car. And immediately after our second test, he went out, because we were running close times right away. He went out and bought a simulator, like a full motion one. So he runs it now.
This sucks. Our secret is out. We no longer have the performance advantage. This is terrible. Terrible news here today.
Yeah, my one advantage. So.
What was it like? I mean, we've all been to tracks as a race fan. Mm-hmm. What was it like coming here knowing you were going to be putting on this suit? Was it different? I mean, what was it like seeing the track, just pulling up knowing you're going to be out there racing like
it's
everybody
crazy.
else?
I mean, first of all, this part of California is beautiful. I mean, you really can't find. There's not too many places in the world that's this beautiful. So that's kind of a shock. But then you start going up this beautiful mountain, and you start seeing Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca signs, and you start to see more and more Mazda Raceway signs, and then you see this big Mazda emblem which is in the middle of the track. And as soon as you see that, you start to catch parts of the track and these big mountain elevation changes. It's unreal. I mean, it's one of my favorite tracks, and we've all driven it in the simulator 1,000,000 times, but to actually come here and experience it, I'm still pinching myself. I don't. It's
so
like,
you don't feel different yet? You're still the same Glenn McGee?
So far, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it was even the week leading up to here, and part of it was a kind of probably a coping mechanism, not to blow something up too big, but it's just unbelievable that I was coming here. I just couldn't believe it until I got here. Like, okay, I'm actually here, I'm wearing a suit, I've got my own race car.
Right.
I've got my own race car. It's like, I got my own race car. I mean, if you look at my simulator rig, you remember my rig is not the highest value rig out there, but it's crazy to go from this rig to I have the best simulator rig in the world right now.
You sure do. Got your name on it and everything.
It's unbelievable.
So yesterday I ran into you right before your race. It was after qualifying.
Yes.
And you looked about as calm and cool. I mean, this is like you're ready to get in the car. I still am looking for that chink in the armor for you. But I wasn't here before qualifying, and that would have been your first, practice and qualifying.
Yes.
How'd you feel at that moment? I mean, were you ready to go, or was it like the 24? I mean, you handled it great there too.
I'll tell you what, at the Mazda Road, the 24 shootout, I was, and Richard as well, we were both unbelievably calm. Thank God. I mean, it's very easy to get your mind going, and it spirals out of control. But for the shootout and for here, I think there's a lot of mental training that I try to use the simulator for. I think that's the level that you have to take the simulator to. I think the guys that are at my level, I mean, and all of us need to. You start out with a simulator, you want to learn how to go fast, but I think you need to, once you get that down, you need to start working on the mental game, and that's helped me unbelievably. Like, everybody, even on the radio, I'm very calm on the radio, and people have mentioned that, like, why are you so calm on the radio? It's like you're just out there, but you have to be.
So after, is there a meeting with the team? What's decompression from the race like?
Well, typically we would, every session we'll come in this room actually and we'll go over data. We'll write down our notes on how the car handled. So each driver will write down, every corner and what the car's doing. And then we'll all kind of get it in a group and talk about the setup. We all try and run generally the same setup, but we have little tweaks here and there. And then we have Papa Bear, John Dean, really just tells us
Leading the way
because he's has a ton of knowledge setup wise as well.
And I'm assuming he's been here before many times.
Oh yeah, this is one of his best tracks. I think he holds a lap record previously.
Right.
And by the way, he's historically the most successful MX-5 Cup driver in the world.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, his stats are
Good
crazy.
company.
Yeah, very good company.
I think of sim cars so if iRacing makes an MX-5, for example,
Yeah.
I think it is an MX-5, but it's not identical to your MX-5. It's a unique car modeled after the MX-5.
Yeah.
So my question here is, how similar or different are the cars? We talked about the track.
This car actually is very unique because it was developed using iRacing's partners and software. Like a lot of it, like most of it was developed through iRacing software, which is really incredible to me. I didn't even realize that until I started talking with the guys. So the cars, like even the suspensions that they decided to pick, were through using software, and obviously they tested in real life. So they were working back and forth with the simulator. So I don't think any car on the simulator has ever been developed on any simulator where it's back and forth, where the manufacturer's working with the simulator,
Right.
on developing how the suspension works and all the other stuff. So this car is actually very accurate on the simulator.
Well, I want to let you go because I know you have a lot to do. I think during the interview I let you do this, but one more time. I mean, anybody out there you want to thank? I mean, a lot of people behind you, I'm sure, in this whole venture.
Oh, it's been incredible. I first of all, the sim racing community is awesome because there's a lot of talent out there in sim racing, and I don't want people to feel like I'm not the guy that's like, oh, I'm here and you're not. Or, it's like there's so many sim racers that could be here, like amazing talents. Like if I meet a sim driver, I'm more amazed to meet him than I am to meet like a pro driver. I am. I've watched and seen everybody's support behind me, and I mean, it really does help me to see that. Wherever I finish, I want to do as good as I can for the sim racing community, but even if I'm sure people think, oh, he should be winning every race, or some people think, oh, that's amazing, he finished there, but everybody's been really positive. And I really feel that, and it's helped me, and it's really cool to see. But obviously, Mazda and iRacing for just coming up with this innovative concept and taking a risk. I mean, they're a risk-taking company, an innovative company, and I think this is an example of that. And I'm just happy that they do that, and we're taking a sim driver and putting him in a real car. It's just, it's unbelievable.
Awesome. Well, Glenn, thank you so much. I congratulations.
Thanks.
I mean, I'm probably your #1 fan. I just, any sim racer who gets in your shoes and then makes us look so good, which that's one thing I will say. I can't think of a sim racer who hasn't made us proud. I mean, it's like so consistent that sim racers get to this point or other points like it, and they consistently do better than expectations, and I think you've done the same thing.
Thanks, I appreciate that, Shaun.
Well, good luck today. Thanks again,
Thanks.
Glenn,
Yeah.
and I'll be rooting for you.